Welcome everyone to the compensation meeting. You're going to hear the same message that everyone else has heard. So the first part is the overview of outcomes, or the why behind what we're doing. So almost upon arrival, Martha and I were both asked questions about salaries, compensation, and just overall pay equity. Vic also had many of those same questions, and so this actually is now a part of our strategic plan for the hospital, but leadership acknowledged that there was an issue and then wanted to take positive steps to course correct that. So this course correction is actually about $680,000 over the next 3 years, and that does not include benefits. So when you add benefits onto that, it's closer to $1 million, and that again is something that annually moving forward will be the cost of the whole reset. The market adjustment is obviously a true win for employees from an employee retention standpoint, as well as for the hospital as we are bringing new people in to the organization correctly as well. So how is compensation structured? A salary range is an established range of pay organized into salary pay grades. So what we did is, upon assessing, we just basically wiped the slate clean, hit a reset button, started from scratch. So we have pay grades 1 through 83, and each pay grade is divided by 2.5%. And so we have 49 pay grades that are actually active pay grades. And we can use any of those others as needed, but that makes it easy for us to put new jobs into the correct pay grade, or when the market increases, to move those jobs accordingly. Since employees have different levels of experience in education, we then calculate the years of experience and required education for each position to determine where an employee should be placed into the salary range. And I want to just talk about required education. That would be anything that is relevant to the job that you're currently doing. So any certificates, licensure, or schooling that pertains to your current job. And then we just need to make sure we have a copy of the diploma or certificate in the HR office. So what is the market adjustment? A market adjustment is a change in pay ranges to specific positions based on market data and comparisons of similar positions. It's not intended to compensate employees for cost of living or normal inflation rates, but it is dependent upon the actual increase to the market value of a job. And many people have asked, well, who's the market? The market is anyone who is interested in the job that you're doing and is willing to pay someone for that job, and then we're interested in what they're paying. The market adjustment is not a bonus, but it's an increase in pay ranges to compensate employees fairly and remain competitive within our market. So how does this affect each person? Every position here at the hospital was evaluated based on the Iowa Hospital Association data, Nebraska Hospital Association data, and the critical access data between both states as well. At times we did need to look at national data depending on the nature of a position. So an example of that would be our wound nurses, because that's not a standard. We have a very nice wound program here, and that's not necessarily seen in all critical access hospitals. So we needed to verify where those ranges should fall based on the national data that we had. So based on this benchmarking data, new pay grades were determined for every position, and then each employee was placed into their position's new pay grade based on years of experience and relevant education, certification, or licensure. So we're going to start with a broad overview. There's 5 different scenarios here. Number 1 has a couple of scenarios. We're actually up to 7 different letters that people could be receiving. And with the letters, we just ask that everyone respect the fact that the letters are very individual depending on how it impacts you specifically. So just to respect that for one another. So some may be receiving an increase to hourly base wage to bring you to your appropriate rate of pay. Pay grades 1 through 20 would have a one-time market pay increase, and pay grades 21 and above will have 3-year consecutive market pay increase. And I want to stop there for a second because there's nothing magical about pay grades 1 through 20. If we could get everybody where we need everyone to be on July 8th, that's what we would do. Excuse me, but going back to that first slide, $680,000 is a lot of money, and when you put benefits on that, $1 million is more, obviously. And so we need to be fiscally responsible as we're rolling this out and make sure that we keep the hospital healthy as we're making these adjustments. And so we literally looked at it from a financial perspective and went up as high as we could to pay out the whole amount, and then figured out where that break was that we needed divided into 3 consecutive payouts. The other piece to this is that everyone will be receiving a 1.5% flat increase to their salary for this year. So the next scenario is some people are exactly where they need to be, and so their rate of pay does not change. There's no market pay increase for the folks who are where they need to be, but there still is that 1.5% flat increase. And then some people fall within their new range, but are at a higher rate of pay than the market dictates. So this would mean that when somebody was hired into their position, they were hired in with more years of experience than what we would have once calculated in the new ranges would make sense. So that's how somebody would get higher. So with that, we're not taking anything away from anyone. That person would remain where they're at until the market catches up, but they still get the 1.5% flat increase. And then the last scenario on here is somebody that's either at the maximum of their new range or above the maximum. So no longer will we have anybody at above the maximum of their range, but if they're there now, then again we would keep them there until the market changes, and then again they would receive the 1.5% flat increase, and that would come to them in a lump sum that's then distributed throughout each pay period. So now we're going to put some dollars with it. So again, back to that first scenario, the individual needing an hourly increase and their pay grades 1 through 20. So currently making $9.05 an hour. The new range is $9.55 to $14.48, and they should be at $10. So they would have a one-time market pay increase from $9.05 to $10, and then they also receive the 1.5% flat increase. So this person would go from $9.05 to $10.15. The second scenario is somebody that is in pay ranges 21 plus. So they're currently making $15.33. The new range is $15.65 to $28.73, and they should be at $18.78. So they're going to have the 3-year market pay increase because they're in that 21 plus pay range. So the difference between the $18.78 and the $15.33 is $3.45. That's divided by 3, so that's $1.15. So they would go from $15.33 to $16.48 for market adjustment this first year, and then they have the 1.5% flat increase on top of that. So they would go from $15.33 to $16.73. And then next year they would have a minimum of $1.15 because that would be the adjustment, and then whatever market or merit is, merit or flat is on top of that. And then again the next year $1.15, and then whatever merit or flat is on top of that. The next scenario is that person who's exactly where they need to be. So they're at $13. The new range is $9.55 to $14.48, and they need to be at $13. So this person would not have a market pay increase, but they would still have the 1.5% flat increase. So they would go from $13 to $13.20. The next individual is the one that falls within the new range but is being paid higher than the market would dictate for years of experience. So they're at $19.13. The new range is $15.65 to $23.73, and they should be at $18.78. So this person would not receive a market increase until the market catches up, but they still receive that 1.5% flat increase. So they would go from $19.13 to $19.42. And then the last scenario is somebody who's over the maximum of their pay grade. So they're currently making $24.40. Their new range is $15.65 to $23.73, and they should be at $23.73 because that's the max of their range. Again, we're not taking anything away from that person. They would stay at $24.40 until the market changes. But they still get that 1.5% flat increase, and so this person is figured at $761.28, and that would be divided out into 26 pay periods. Those will show up as a separate line item on the paycheck. It will not change the hourly rate. So once somebody is maxed, that max is their hourly, that's the highest their hourly rate can go. So then this shows how we placed everybody into the range and how we placed new people into the range. So what we did is you take the last 3 rolling merit or flat increases that we've had for the hospital. And so we did that, and it averaged to 2.5 as well. So in this scenario, the range is 1565 to 2373. John has 4 years of experience. So you take that 2.5 times 4, which is 10%, so John should be 10% into the range. You take the base times 10%, which is $1.57, and then you add that to the base, so 1565 plus 157 is 1722, and so that's where John would be in the range. Sally, same range, but Sally has 18 years, so you take 2.5 times 18, so you have 45%, so she should be 45% into the range. So you take the base times 45%, which is 704, and then you add that back to the base of the range, so 1565 plus 704 is 2269. So next steps. A human resource representative will walk you through the information as it pertains to you and your department, which is what we're doing now. Your market adjustments and your 1.5% flat increase all take place on July 8th, which is the Sunday, the first day of the full pay period in our new fiscal year. So your hourly rate will change as of that date, and you will see that on that following paycheck. As a reminder, this year's performance evaluation timeline has been extended until August 31st. We have a lot of changes happening right now, and part of what we're doing also makes certain that the titles, everyone's title is correct, and makes sure that it's correct according to definitions. And so we've had some adjustments there, which impacts the evaluations as well. So once we have those ready, we'll get those to the managers, and then they will start working on those. All existing standard pay practices remain the same, so shift differentials, weekend differential, call pay, anything that's standard will remain the same at this time, but then will be evaluated in the next phase of assessment. We really wanted to focus on getting people where they needed to be first. There are a couple of atypical practices that are changing, and the one that impacts most people, or the most people, sorry, is the PRN 17%. And so while we understand why that was put into place, the 17%, we're not sure where that percentage is from, but the reasoning behind it, a couple of things that we noticed was that with the ranges being off, it helped, the 17% helped offset that so that we could get people in where we felt they needed to be. And then the other piece was because PRN folks did not use or have the ability to use the insurance. However, we have full-time people that don't use the insurance as well. So if there are spouses that carry insurance, or you know, a lot of kids can stay on parents' insurance until they're 26 now. So there's a lot of scenarios where people might not use that insurance. So what we want to focus on is bringing everybody into the organization in the right place with the correct amount of experience. The evaluation process for this past year will remain the same, so expectations can be set at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we would not want to change that evaluation process right before evaluation time. That's not fair to anyone. We want to make sure that once that is adjusted, that it's done so in a timely manner so that you have most of the year to reach the goals. So we'll look at that process here moving forward. As a reminder, even though everyone's getting that flat increase on July 8th, and evaluations are not due until the end of August, anyone receiving a score below a 3 still must have an action plan in place for performance improvement. And then we'll talk about the possibility of merit increases once our new CEO, Chuck, gets here, just so that we can figure out what that should look like. We wanted to share the timeline with everyone. So the assessment was completed on May 4th, and I say completion very loosely because it's a fluid process. We recognize that going in, that we tried to find all of the answers, but clearly there were things that came up, and we want people to ask questions if things do not seem correct. So if you hear of questions or if you have questions yourself, please let us know so we can answer those. The presentation was then taken to the executive team on May 15th, and the executive team would be Vic, Sherry, and Milt. They provided some great feedback for us. We then took that to senior leadership, which adds a handful of directors. They also had input. So that was very helpful. We then took it to the department managers, and we asked the department managers to hold that information on the 24th until we were able to present it to the board, because we needed to present to board for board approval. And the board did approve this along with the rest of the budget for the new fiscal year. And so then we were able to start rolling this out in June, and the market adjustments and the flat increase take place on July 8th. What questions do you have? Okay, Chuck, we're done. Let me give him the... All right, so I'll give you your letters. I don't know. Did he show you how to shut it off, or do you know how? Wanda?
Short arms here.
Oh, I have the